The nutrition and health market is so huge, it can sometimes feel very overwhelming trying to navigate all of the different diets, keto, paleo, carnivore, vegan, vegetarian, low fat, high carb, whatever, right? It's all coming out, and there's somebody out there telling you that this way is the worst, this way is the best, and if you listen to everybody, you end up not being able to eat anything. And so I wanted to start a series about nutrition so that you guys can decide for yourselves and trim the fat and just see the good stuff and understand exactly what it all means. And so to start it off, I want to talk a little bit about organic food and what is organic, what is inorganic, what does that even mean, why is it so much more expensive, and should I be eating it myself? Organic food is just food that is grown without the use of artificial chemicals, so pesticides, herbicides, artificial fertilizers, or any other things that you'd spray on them. Now, me myself, having been born in Ukraine, I was raised with a considerable amount of time just eating pure farm-to-table organic food. It was wonderful. So because Ukraine has the best soil in the world, this black soil is called Chernozem. It was formed when the glaciers during the Ice Age came down, and they were scraping the mountainsides, and they landed on Ukraine, which is a very plain area. Ukraine's part of that Eurasian steppe where the Mongols were and where all of these nomadic tribes like the Scythians were, and it's an Indo-European homeland for the very first Indo-European nomadic tribes people. If you guys know anything about history, that is the original culture that seeded the Indo-European language family into the world. So imagine how influential they must have been. And it's this steppe land where you can grow anything you want. The soil is so rich. We have a saying, you put a stick into the soil, it becomes a tree. The tomatoes are like 2 kilograms, 2 kilogram tomatoes. Imagine that, huge buffalo ones. And so every single house has a household as well as a homestead. So they have a main building and then like a summer kitchen where they store all of their pickled stuff and fermented foods in the cellars and cook things and prepare meats. We had our own chickens. We ate eggs that were laid that day, and the yolk was just so golden, and it was just amazing. Like, the chickens were obviously eating the insects and the herbs everywhere, and so it was just so pure, no chemicals whatsoever. I regularly drank goat's milk that was white and frothy and fresh because it was warm. It had just been milked, and I was drinking straight away, like all the enzymes, all of that bioactive things that are in milk, right, that die off. The more you pasteurize it, the more it stays. But this was like completely unpasteurized, straight from a go. I was drinking it, loving it as a kid. It was so amazing for you. And when I moved to the UK with my family, the food in the UK is trash. All of the vegetables are tasteless. It looks like they've never even touched the soil. I think it's all grown hydroponically. All the good stuff is imported and very expensive. But my mother and my father, they still prioritize organic food. We ate organic produce with whole foods and home cooked meals my entire childhood. And so I really love that period of my life. And very recently in Canada, I've managed to find an organic food box that goes straight from the farmers, cutting out the supermarkets and doing delivery straight to your door. It's called spud.com. I recommend checking it out. Everything on there is organic, and guys, the taste is completely different. It's very different taste. And so it's like the strawberries are not just white on the inside, they are fully red, and they have so much more flavor, because you have to understand, for food to get flavor, the plant needs to have gone through some stress. It needs to have been exposed to a very healthy topsoil. And right now, with the way intensive agriculture works, monoculture, one crop on a field, spray that shit with pesticides, herbicides, artificial fertilizers, ammonia fertilizers, just spray it, right? Just spray that shit. And the plant doesn't like that very much. The soil becomes dead. It's desertification. After about 10 years of the same field being used for one crop, it desertifies and the topsoil is dead. It's just dust. It's like sand. But the soil is a living organism. I don't know if you guys know this, but there are so many different species. The biodiversity within soil is insane. So you have your worms, you have all of the insects and the burrowing beetles and the bugs, you have the fungi. Imagine how many different mycelium networks there are within a bit of soil. You have all of these little bacterias, right, which are breaking things down. You have even mammals live in the soil. There is so much going on there in these tiny little specks. And so what ends up happening is all of that is an ecosystem that creates nutrition for the plant, and that is what separates organic with inorganic. I mean, there are some organic fertilizers which are natural, but really the point of organic and the things you should be eating is what came from a healthy soil, what came from a biodiverse soil, what has the most nutrients in it, because food nowadays doesn't have as many nutrients as it used to, simply because of this shitty form of agriculture which kills the soil, and it also is not good for you either. And so buying organic not only helps the world, it helps nature proliferate, because what ends up happening is all those pesticides and herbicides, they leak into the soil, they leak into the water supply, into the water table, and then somewhere along the line, a river, a stream, someone drinks that water in the local community, bam, they've now got these endocrine disruptors, these hormone disruptors. And what we've seen happen from these runoffs in nature is frogs become the opposite gender. Literally, a male frog will become a female frog, or vice versa, I don't remember, but this is scientific fact. And then I know when I was studying environmental sciences in the Amazon, they were saying the macaws, the parrots, they've been exposed to pesticides and runoff, and they were exhibiting not only pedophilic behavior, attacking babies and trying to rape babies, but also they were gender non-conforming. They were as if trying to be the opposite gender and acting in behaviors like the opposite gender. And do you know how much of this stuff is in our water supply? This is why you need a premium water filter. I will have a video just about that, but really you should be very clean of all of these hormone disrupting things, and you have them in your laundry detergent, you have it in your deodorant, you have it in the soap you use for your hands, the shampoo you use for your hair. Everything you are currently putting on your skin very likely has these toxic chemicals that mess with your hormone function. They lower testosterone, they lower your sperm count. Think of it, microplastics, BPA, there are phthalates, there is literal estrogen in your water that you are drinking that girls are peeing out because they're on hormonal contraceptives, right? And you're drinking this if you're not filtering your water, because who's treating the water like this? No one. They even used to put fluoride in the water, they put chloride in the water. So just in the water alone, all of these poisons, but in agriculture, in producing these things, so much more. I have actually myself worked on many farms, as well as my grandparents' farm where I grew up. As well as that in France, I've worked with oysters on an oyster farm. I've worked with organic tomatoes and cucumbers and growing them, picking them, doing all that good stuff. That was really amazing. And I've lived on a farm as well, and I got to see the greater workings of one of these farms in northern France. And I am telling you, there's a huge difference between organic and inorganic food for your health. I remember seeing this one video where a family got tested with their blood, like every member of the family, to see what did they have as trace elements in them, you know, maybe like heavy metals or maybe some sort of runoffs or resins from their food. And they ate non-organic food, they tested their blood, there was so many little trace elements of all of this garbage in their blood, and then they got them on an organic diet, they tested it a month later, nothing. And so you have all of these little tiny trace elements, because pesticides and herbicides are allowed to be used because there is this thing of it's not a toxic amount, it's not enough to make you die or to give you cancer, right? Like they've tested the amounts, and per human body weight or whatever, it's not enough. But that doesn't mean that all of them in a variety and in a combination over a chronically long period of time won't have a really bad effect on your hormone system, on diseases. I'm sure it's responsible for so many different things that, you know, allergies, seasonal allergies, what the fuck is that? We're a human being, why are we allergic to shit? And like, it's also responsible for microbiome depletion. You know, people have like IBS or ulcerative colitis or whatever, and they're eating non-organic foods. So think about it, like it's not natural for us to be doing that at all. We're having these little tiny trace amounts of poison every day through our diet. And that's even if you have a healthy diet, right? There's also processed foods, which I will be going into later as well. But essentially, to give you an idea of what you could do right now to take care of your health is find one of these box schemes in your country, right? You could even find farms close to you. I'm sure every single person has some sort of farm or a local area where they grow organic food nearby. Make a deal with the farmers, literally knock on their door and say, hey, I would like to buy some of your eggs. Hey, I would like to buy some of your tomatoes. And they have a network. Usually they'll all be able to pull in and help each other. They trade food regularly with each other. Like farmers do that. That's just, I've lived with a farmer. They just trade and it's beautiful. So offer them value, go over there, or just to make it easier for yourself, go find a box scheme. Spud.com is the one here in BC. I don't know where you're based or what's good for you, but I'm sure if you dug around long enough and hard enough, you would definitely find something like that. And so in the UK, it is called Riverford box scheme. So I recommend checking that out. But essentially, get one of those and see and eat whole food. Start eating whole food. Like this is what my diet looks like, right? I have olives, right? I have olive oil. I have some ghee that I cook with. That's all. I eat a lot of bison, so a kind of a wild variety of a free roaming cows. So you can do beef that's free roaming, that's really healthy, eating grass in nature. And then I have organic dairy. I eat a lot of organic cheeses and things like that. There's a few different types that I choose every single week. We try out different types and just to see which ones we like. We have an organic yogurt, which is probiotic. You also want to eat probiotic foods, but that's going to be a whole episode in and of itself. So I eat this probiotic yogurt, organic kefir. You have loads of organic fruit and organic vegetables, and I've recently started buying this. It's delivered to my door. I choose what I want throughout. And it's just been a game changer. Honestly, everything tastes so good. And I just snack throughout the day. Like, because I'm here, I just have some fruit, I'll have some nuts. Maybe I will have a meal like a food prep meal that we prepped earlier in the week. I try to keep it low carb. And when you eat stuff like this, it's just so good for you. And a lot of people are gonna say this is expensive, but really, it's a matter of your priorities. Think about it. If you have an expensive car you pay for, or a car that you pay for a lot, if you're buying shit on Amazon you don't need on a regular basis, if you have gaming sets and games that you're paying for and you're wasting all your time on this bullshit, if you have any sort of other thing that you pay for, you know, are you paying rent on a big ass property, right? Because you like to live in luxury or whatever your situation is. It's really all about priorities, because you look at how much money you make, right? And you decide what is more important to you, saving your balls, saving your reproductive health so that you can have a child in the future, right? To pass on that genetic baton to the next generation and be able to procreate into that next generation and continue this bloodline that you have had since time immemorial. When you think about all of the extinction events, your ancestors survived. Whatever your belief is, whether it was humans or whether it was, you know, we were little rodent creatures when the dinosaurs were wiped out, every single one of your ancestors had a child and survived the event. And now if you are prioritizing something other than your reproductive health, that is an insult to your bloodline. It really, really is. And so you should be thinking about having children. You should be thinking about, how do I keep my reproductive health good? How do I avoid getting cancer? How do I avoid getting all of these chronic illnesses? And really a huge part of it is inorganic food and constant exposure to environmental toxins. There's going to be a whole series about environmental toxins, so stay tuned for that one. If you are somebody who does not have really the resources, you really tried prioritizing and you just don't have the money, then what you can do is you can take your fruit and veg as soon as you've purchased it from the store and buy as much fruit and veg as you can. Try to maintain that in your diet for a variety of reasons, which we will go into eventually, but buy that and bring it home. And as soon as you brought it home, you get a huge bowl, you put into it water, right? A lot of water, bicarbonate of soda. It has to be bicarbonate. It can't be baking powder. Put that bad boy in there, mix it around, maybe like a tablespoon or two, right? And then once you mix the all in this, it will neutralize it. Soda is extremely alkaline, and so the acidic properties of all of these herbicides and pesticides will be neutralized, and then you add vinegar as well on top of it, and that creates this reaction that further neutralizes everything else that's on there. And you really want to do this for something called the Dirty Dozen. It is the 12 fruit and vegetables that are the most susceptible to these pesticides. Because think about it, if you have a potato, right, with a very thick skin, the pesticides go into the skin, you peel it, there's not as many pesticides inside. But when you have a blueberry or a strawberry or any type of non-organic berry, think about all of that shit that is in the juices. There is literal chemicals in the juices. So really keep that in mind. And make sure that you wash your things. Very cost effective, very effective.